Today's topic is scale. We are looking at all things scale, and it's a really great way to take a fresh mindset into 2023. So we're looking at setting your goals for the new year and what mindset to leave behind and what to take along. So Jamie, I know that you're a great action taker, a great end in mind planner. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic with you today.
That's good, Kristy. Yeah, it's going to be exciting being in the hot seat today without Ed.
Yeah. So let's kick off, Jamie. And New Year's are usually a time for fresh starts. However, we also have the option to keep on treading the same water, since, you know, there might be things that have been really effective this year for us. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I think it's cliche, isn't it? The New Year's resolution, isn't it? We always hear that. And actually, I was watching TV the other day for a moment, and I saw this movie called The Groundhog Day. I don't know if anyone's seen The Groundhog Day, but this particular chap wakes up and it's the same day every day. And I think all of us can feel like that sometimes. You know, you think, oh, it's the same day every day, but that's where your goals come into it. And particularly your strategic goals. So, you know, part of being wise mentoring is to, you know, begin with the end in mind. And so, you know, it's easy to get, I think, caught in the day-to-day, you know, of taking the next phone call, doing the next tax return, lodging the next BAS, or doing your bookkeeping. It's so easy to get caught in doing what I would call those quad one activities. And there's a lot of material in the Wize Vault around the quad activities, Kristy, and I'd have to probably say the single biggest impact that had on me was the explanation of the quad one activities versus the quad two activities, and of course Ed introduced that to me many years ago. And with the quad activities, if you know, for those that are here, if you haven't already done that exercise, it's so important to write down everything you do. So everything you do every day, every week, every month, and even there'll be certain tasks that you do quarterly, 6 monthly, and then annually. And so I think when I'd done that, I had about 50 different tasks that I did. And then I remember working with Ed, and he said to me, "Look, you need to classify all the tasks that you do between quad one and quad two, and quad one was urgent and important, and quad two was not urgent but important." So the important thing is, to give this a bit of context, is you know, if you want to reach the vision for your firm and for your life, you've got to try and move into quad two activities, the not urgent and important. And we've got that ebook that is available free. Anyone can grab that ebook. You know, my mission then, Kristy, became in getting rid of my quad one activities and moving into my quad two activities, because I knew that when I did that, I was moving towards my goals. I knew I was moving towards my goals. So they were really central to improving my firm, you know, growing the firm to where it is today. And, you know, perhaps, you know, I could talk about this stuff all day, but, you know, there is certain activities. It's sort of like a universal law, you know, what you focus on, what you focus your energy on. We've all probably heard of that philosophy, if you like, but it simply is true. And then, you know, over time, as I got rid of my quad one activities, I could, you know, it gave me the ability to be less busy. It was sort of a dichotomy, if you like the more I worked in quad two activities, the less busy I became.
Yeah.
But what happened was the firm grew. It was quite weird that simply when you hire people, you know, and you know, we always talk about hiring people as a balance sheet play, not an expense. So you should see us hiring people as an investment. But when you hire people, when you delegate correctly, when you make, you know, policies and procedures and simply work on your firm, that area expands, that, and your time as the owner, as the leader, whether it's as a client manager or a firm owner, that area just expands, and it's amazing. And then, I do remember on that journey, and I always tell the story, I woke up one day and I thought, oh, what am I going to do today? So if you guys wake up one morning and say, what am I going to do today? You know you're on the right path.
Look, I think it's great too, particularly this time of year, for those diligently doing their quad sheet, to look back on it and look and reflect on the things that you've successfully delegated, or the things that you've started to create an SOP for. You've got a policy in place to be transitioning that out, and really acknowledging where you've come from and where you're heading to in the new year, because it's surprising. And I often find, as the firm owners, when we wear all the hats, us doing a task can often take longer than it can when it's delegated to a team member, because they're not pulled in as many directions as us or distracted by as many things. So it really does free up our time exponentially without loading up the team. So the more you can delegate out, the better, isn't it? So the more time you can spend in quad 2, it really gives you a compounded effect of further return.
And, another way to look at it, Kristy, is, we always talk about it, Wize, is the 7 divisions. So, ultimately, your big picture goal is to get to a certain amount of revenue. And that is still my goal these days at Sky Accountants, is to get to a certain amount of revenue. And then for you as the leader, as the CEO or a partner or the owner or whatever, is to do certain things, and, one of the definitions that we go on is, of a business or a firm is a commercial profitable enterprise that runs without the owner. And that's the ultimate goal. It might seem far away to some of you, but it certainly is 100% possible. It's just that you have to be very persistent, very consistent, and go on that journey. And with all those tasks that we just spoke about, Kristy, you can classify them into division 7, 6, 5, 4, and that's another thing that I did. I classified them into those divisions, and you've got on the screen there about habits. What you don't want to fall into the habit is just like a little task that takes 5 or 10 minutes that's every day, and you'll say to yourself, oh, it's just quicker if I do it myself. And
yeah, absolutely. I always think of Tim with those kind of tasks of, he often will say death by 1,000 cuts.
That's it. Yeah.
We only have so much time in a day. Those 1 or 2 minute tasks, they will quickly eat up all of your time without you realizing.
And it's 5 minutes every day for the rest of your career too. And like that adds up, So in terms of goal setting, I think, the time management quadrants, which obviously come from Dr. Stephen Covey out of, 7 habits of highly successful people. I would bring everyone back to that over the Christmas break, is to review and update all the things that they do, and then recommit again to what you need to remove from the quad 1 activities. And if you recommit to that heading into 2023, you'll certainly be on the path of achieving your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And on those goals, Jamie, what are some of the important goals you've set with your team?
It comes back to very basics, Kristy. It comes back to keeping the Fab 5 in the right direction. So from a maintaining point of view is to keep trying to get each of the teams to hit their KPIs in the Fab 5. And that's your revenue, your profitability, your lockup, your sales, and then your NPS. So at a basic level, it's keep those going. Add a little bit more detail to that. The most important thing is making sure that you have your teams built and structured with capacity. I talk about this all the time at Sky Accountants. These days we've got 5 teams of various sizes. And the only way for those teams to have the ability to achieve their KPIs, to achieve their goals, is to make sure that they have the right team structure. So, finders, minders, and grinders, and then in a deep and narrow team, and then making sure each team has capacity. They are just absolute fundamental things, so that your firm can grow. They're at a real basic level. At a strategic level, it's more headed by myself and, say, our executive team around, how can we improve our marketing? How can we improve our organic growth? Is it time for another tuck-in, for example? So we have what we call rifle shot letters that we send out to, firms in the area with people looking to retire, or do they have succession plans? So that's really sort of headed by me. And it's important to understand that those type of activities, they can take a couple of years. So developing those relationships, if you're looking to buy a small parcel of fees, and you can buy a small parcel of fees of, from 100,000 to 1 million, depending on sort of where you're at in your journey. So those type of activities are very strategic, Kristy, for myself. They do take a couple of years, often take a couple of years to achieve those type of goals, particularly if you're looking at an acquisition. So
yeah, I think too on that, Jamie, it's a really good point. We've got plenty of resources in the Wize Hub and the Wize Vault to help people setting their goals and knowing what actions they need to take. If you've got your capacity planner up to date, you can see the total capacity with the current firm size you've got. If you've filled out your growth plan, you can see what activities you need to do. If you're in line for a tuck-in in the new year, have you started that process and really being guided by it? So sometimes it can feel like setting goals or New Year's resolutions, they're just things that you throw out there. But the great thing about Wize is we've got resources to help you make it achievable. What other things would you suggest we're looking at in our Wize resources to help build out some clear action points for 2023?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and again, I sort of talked with my client managers at Sky, is just around the people. While we're in financial services, be that bookkeeping or taxation services, it's just all about the people, Kristy. I think like if you can come back and really determine if you've got the right people, and then the right people doing the right work, and then make sure you've got enough people. Now, I know it's difficult in the current environment with finding people, but I think you're really not going to grow unless you've got the right people. And I've nearly had Sky Council at close to 20 years now, and started at the home office of all those years ago. And it's just been a journey of hiring people, keeping the right people, and becoming a better leader in myself. And the other week, I can't remember, we have a lot of clinics and workshops and different things, but I think my topic might have been in Pitch Stop workshop, but my topic was on the tools to leadership. And so, Richard Branson said, most businesses are people. They're just people. So if you can get that toolbox of leadership skills, Ed has so many, doesn't he, Kristy? The look and don't listen, the no bypass policy, no
blame culture.
No blame culture, lose the battle, win the war. If you can develop all those tools to help you be a better leader, I think that's a core. And they might sound a sort of a little bit feely, touchy or whatever, because they mightn't be definitive goals. But one of the things you want to try and do, and I think I improved over the years with it, was reducing staff turnover. Back in the early days, I think I was a terrible leader. My staff turnover was terrible, and more recent years, it's been quite stable. It's stable to a degree, and to understand too that you go through cycles. Like with people, you tend to go through cycles. So your team at some point can be really strong. You can have the right people, and then for whatever reason, someone might move interstate. Someone might decide to have kids, and sometimes people get sick as well. All sorts of reasons. So just step back, realize that things come in cycles, and keep the big picture. Keep the big picture in view. But I think the biggest thing, in particularly for the Wize firms and trying to get some advice from us, is just to focus on your own leadership skills and focus on your people, because without the right people, it's really, really hard to grow, of course. So, if you find the right people, try and keep the right people, and using all the tools. There's some great sections in the Wize Vault actually on leadership. There's some really great sections, and we even talk about the 4 stages of learning. If everyone's seen the 4 quadrants of learning, where you're, and I must say I went through this. The first one is unconscious incompetence. That's the first one, and then the next one I think is conscious incompetence. So you start being more self-aware around, you sort of become more aware on your actions and your words and your deeds of how they affect the team.
Yeah.
I could go on the other quadrants, but and then, ultimately you want to become, I think it's unconscious competence, where your habits are so good, and you've got to gain that word habits there. It's all about developing, getting rid of the old bad habits and introducing the new good habits. And what I find is, that's just rhythm and routine. So, in my world, the meetings are so important. So, my weekly meeting with my senior client managers, whatever meetings you have, it's just the rhythm and routine and the accountability of the meetings. They're the sort of things that really set the firm free and give people direction. The meetings, rhythms and routines. It's a bit like that gym membership, you got to turn up and
Exactly. Well, I was just thinking, Jamie, of the work that you put into your sprint training, that you didn't just rock up one day to a meet and run the fastest 100 for your age group. You had to put in the work, but you can also measure that success too, can't you, from that first event you did to what you could do now. So using your Fab 5 to be looking back at your dashboard, seeing its tracking, its comparison to last year, to budget, all of those things are a great way to keep you on track or know where you've come off track and need to focus on.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Kristy, a really, really important point. So, if you have your meetings, and that's the rhythm and routine, those good habits, make sure in that process of your meetings is to measure, how people are performing. It shouldn't just be every 6 months. So yes, have a formal appraisal of each team member every 6 months. That's important, but realistically, it should be sort of weekly, that you're measuring how everyone's going, how the firm's going. And, what's that old saying? What you don't measure, or what you measure, you can manage. So, if I think about the absolute fundamentals of being a leader, particularly in a firm, it's looking at productivity. So for me, if a team's not performing and you're leading into, look at productivity. That's just basic 101. Make sure people in your firm are reaching their productivity targets, and if they're not, you need to have that discussion with them in a non-blame way to try and help them achieve their productivity targets. And that's the first thing. The second thing is your write-offs. And so if you've got a lot of write-offs on your team, you need to try and work out why. So if you know why, there's that accountants, I think, write-off secrets, applies to both bookkeepers and accountants. Grab a copy of that ebook if you haven't already read that. And then if you measure those two things and you slowly work with your team members towards reaching those KPIs, those goals, then the firm overall will go better. So it's investing in people over and over, and making sure you understand that with your staff, they're either inexperienced or they may be unfortunately incompetent, as Ed always says. So, if they're inexperienced, it just means that they need more training, they need more help, they need more investing.
I think it's important too that in speaking about people and people are our business, they absolutely are. But one of the things we can do to support them and to protect ourselves is to really drill in on those systems and processes that we've got, and ensuring that we've got extraordinary systems to support our people so that they can be in their flow and bring their best. But if their life changes, they want to go and do something else, then you've at least got strong foundations to have someone else come in to the role without it being disruptive to your business. And I think it's a great opportunity as we come into a quieter couple of weeks to do a bit of housekeeping and look at your systems. What's been working this year, what hasn't, what do we not want to do next year, what do we want to change and improve, and work in collaboration with your team to continue refining those systems to allow your people to be their best.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of the achievement around that, it comes back from that routine of your meetings. That could be a refresh thing that everyone can look at. What meetings am I having to bringing people together, to working together as a team? And so it's very easy to get sort of tunnel vision, isn't it? I think in your career, and you can just sort of think, well, I'll just do my job. But, every firm that wants to grow, it's often a high level of teamwork. So, getting people together and focusing on a goal and working together towards a goal for that team. And we do a lot of that at Sky with systems and processes too, Kristy, around, why are we doing things this way? And then someone says, yeah, I'm not sure what we've done that like that for 5 years. So, so it's always good to review the processes and develop more processes or policies. And, check. I'm a massive one on checklists. Checklists are just so important because, what we do these days, it's quite complex, isn't it? Really? Like there's so many things to remember, like, and how people, it's a bit like riding a bike, it's very difficult to start. You might have a new virtual CFO job or a new accounting job, and it takes a lot of effort to onboard them. But in that process, unless you do checklists, it's really easy to slip up. It's really easy to miss something, It's so easy to miss something. So I'm a massive believer in checklists. And then, after a while, it just obviously becomes habit because you've done the job 5 times. But that quality control with checklists is just massive.
Yeah, it's so important. And again, it's something you can measure. You can go back if the work hasn't come out the right way in the technical review, you can have a look at the checklist. And if everything was ticked and it's still not right, you can have a look together with the team member on what do you need to improve? Where can you change things so that it does come out correctly next time? And it's really fostering that interdependent relationship amongst your team, from the managers through to the grinders.
Yes. It just helps people. Like if you've got a policy procedure and you record it, and then someone wants to know how to do that particular task, that's great leadership. This is how you do it. Just watch, So it's all about investing in systems and processes, and number one at the top is investing in people.
Absolutely. All right. So Jamie, what would you say is one action point you'd suggest taking for people coming into the new year, fresh feelings?
Easy. This is an easy one. Okay, everyone, this is Dr. John's here. Now, over the break, write down, or if you've already done it, just refresh your list. So I want you to write down every single task that you do. So here's the biggest step. Write down every task that you do. And then once you've written down every task that you do these days, I want you to classify it between a quad 1 activity and a quad 2 activity. I'll give you 3 steps, Kristy. That's the next step. And then the third step, everyone, is once you've written down every task that you do, classify them into the 7 divisions. Okay, and if you can just do this on a spreadsheet, it's probably the easiest way to do it. Or we've got heaps of resources in the Wize Vault if you've got the Wize Hub or whatever. So that's exactly what I do. And then the final thing then is to determine the easiest ones to remove. So you'll probably have some in division 7, some 6, 5, and 4. Whatever is that for you, going into 2023, highlight those yellow ones and determine to remove yourself from those particular tasks, because that will mean that you're both growing professionally and career-wise, and it'll help the firm grow as well. And then some firms here too, Kristy, might be the stage where they need an assistant client manager. Now that's a fantastic goal. That's a fantastic step, and that's transformational, So if you get to sort of that point, which is division 3 in sales, list all your clients and classify them from A, B, C, and D. And with the C and D class clients, you can start handing those to an appropriate assistant client manager. That's a fantastic goal. That's transformational. All the steps are transformational. Some just have bigger impact than others.
Yeah, Yeah,
So,
absolutely. The thing I love about that task too, Jamie, is it's not just for firm owners. If you've got senior team members, if you've got a senior client manager or assistant client manager, senior production manager, get them filling out a quad activity sheet as well, so that you can start freeing them up more to have more capacity in their team, to be able to expand on their own leadership skills. It doesn't just stop with the firm owners. It's a great one to take into the new year.
That's a great point. And I'm on that with my senior client managers and assistant client managers, because as you keep winning fees and getting new work, the jobs and tasks that those particular people do in that role, Kristy, they have to change as well.
Yeah.
So it's all about change management, this, and it can be quite tricky because human beings, we don't like to change too much, you know. So sometimes we've got to let go of the old and delegate that work down. You know, another one of Ed's saying is push the work down and build up the team. I used to have that quote in the wall. So push the work down and build up the team. So then you've got a lead, as you said, Kristy, your might be, you know, a senior accountant who's moving into a senior production manager role, or it might be someone who's a senior accountant and you've identified them and you've grown enough to promote them to an assistant client manager. So what they have to do is that quad activities as well. It's really important. What work are they doing? You know, work should they start delegating down to the next team member that you've hired, so they can let go of that work, so they can fill their role as a senior production manager or as an assistant client manager. Because, you know, as soon as you're an assistant client manager, you're talking a lot with clients on a daily basis. And then your productivity target drops as well, because you've got to deal with sales and you've got to deal with queries. Yeah. So it's a great point that you make, though. Not just the firm owner has to change and grow, everyone in the firm has to change and grow. And that takes a lot of leadership.
Yeah. And on that point too, that, you know, to bring some Ed into our meeting today, while he's not here with us in physical form, he has left us with a reminder of a quote, and to encourage all Wize members to invite their team along. We're here to support you in your business growth by helping drip on your staff. Know that it helps them to hear from other people, and having those third-party endorsements. We're part of your growth team here. But it says managers should be prepared to get training on how to manage, because poor management causes an enormous amount of damage to all around them. I think that's a really important one to remember as we look at who we have in our existing team and helping them foster their own growth too.
That's right. You know, and, you know, coming back to that toolbox we spoke about earlier, and Ed always says it's micro train and don't micromanage. Because if you micromanage people, they'll leave.
Yeah, absolutely. So, gosh, I often think about that when I'm trying to teach my kids something. You know, if I just try and manage it too much, that it won't be met kindly. But if we empower them, if we micro-train and give them the resources, then they will have the ability to do it.
Yeah, micro train, and that's again where you comes into the videos, the SOPs, the checklist. Yeah. Give someone all the tools and all the knowledge that they need to be successful, and then get out of their way, and then give them the goals, give them the tools, and most people will shine if you do that.
Yeah, absolutely.